Hey guys, Kirkcaster here, and today I wanted to answer a whole bunch of questions that I've been getting from PlayStation players or new players in general for Phantasy Star New Genesis. So with this, going to be going over 50 of these questions because there was just way too many to put into one video. But with these 50 questions, they're going to be split into 5 different categories. So the first one is getting started. The second is like combat and gear. The third is social aspects of the game. Fourth is the fashion or cosmetics. And fifth is just a miscellaneous or other category. But actually getting into the questions here is, what is this game? What is PSO2 New Genesis? So I'll describe this game as an online action RPG. Some may call it an MMO. I would more call it an MMO light. That's kind of a new term being flown around where it has some key aspects of an MMO, but it isn't exactly like, say, Final Fantasy XIV or World of Warcraft. So what I mean by this is that it's more of a combination between those things and also something like Warframe. So you have the classes, you have hack and slash combat, you have the grinding for all the different pieces of gear, but not things like raids where you take like 20 or 40 players into a single instance. And you don't have things like life skills, and most of the zones or cities are way smaller than the huge MMO games. But despite this, you can have a lot of fun with this game with its high level of combat and also just all of the co-op activities that you can do with your friends. But moving on to the next question though is, what is the business model for New Genesis? So this is a free-to-play game with monetization. So you can buy things like cosmetics, convenience items, or a thing that's called premium. So this premium gives you a whole bunch of other benefits like little boosts and also gives you extra slots for different things. But you can play this whole game for free if you wanted to. You are not gated from any of the content. That's it for an overview of this game. Let's actually get into it and select a ship. So that leads into the next question. What ship should I select? Does it matter? So each of these ships are essentially different servers. So if you choose one and create a character, you won't be able to play with somebody else on a different ship unless you transfer that character, which can cost real life money. But the neat thing is that you can have 3 characters for free, so you can make one, say, on ship 1, one on 2, and one on 3. So you can play on each of those characters separately, but you wouldn't be able to share resources between them. In all honesty, though, you'll probably just choose one ship to main and play the character on that. But for what ship that you should choose, just choose the ones that your friends are on. And if you don't have that, you can choose ship 3, the one that I main, or just choose one at random or whatever the game recommends you. So once you choose your ship, you can start making your character. So one of the first questions that people have is, does the race that you choose matter? So here we have the humans, the male and female, Newmans, Doomans, and Cast. So with the base game, so there's another game that comes along with this called PSO2. There used to be small stat differences that were negligible, but for New Genesis, there is absolutely no difference other than looks. So you can choose whatever you want to look like, whatever is, the best looking to you, and you can continue creating your character through simple creation or detailed creation. So then you can start customizing your character how you see fit, but we'll go more in depth with the cosmetics later into the fashion category. But moving on into the next page here is the class selection. So this leads into the next question, how many classes are in this game? So initially you see 6 in the character creation, but currently there's actually 9 classes. So with that, you have to play a little bit of the game, and then later on you can change your class. So that kind of ties into another question. Can you freely change your classes, or are you kind of set into like a class or two, or is there some extreme cost? Actually, it's free to switch between any of the classes as you see fit, as long as you just go to the class counter and switch it. But the thing with these different classes is that they level independently. So if you level a little bit into Hunter and decide, oh, I just want to play something else like Fighter, then your Fighter will still be level 1 when you switch to it, and not whatever level you got with Hunter, so you have to kind of start all over again with that new class. Then for the most popular question though is, what is the best class to play? So I would not say there's a single class that is the best out of all of them. They each have their own strengths and weaknesses. So for Hunter, for example, it has high HP and defense, so it is the more tanky class versus the rest. For Fighter, it has a lack of defense, but is made up for it with a high DPS. But with Tector, for instance, it is high support, so it doesn't do much damage in comparison to the rest of the classes on its own, but it helps everybody else with buffs. There's just a whole bunch of things like this that differentiate the different classes. But once you figure out which class you want to try first and select a name, you can go into the game. But before we actually get into the game, there's a few more things on this title menu that I wanted to talk about. For one of these things is there a reason to create multiple characters? There isn't a whole lot of advantages when it comes to this. Each of them have their own separate skill trees, so if you want to make it differently, then you can. And they also have their own character storages, so each of these have like a several hundred character storage and also their own inventories. But for the main things that are important with this game, such as dailies, weeklies, and also like mineral gathering, all those are account bound. So if you do it on one character, you cannot do it on, say, the next, even if they're on a different ship. This kind of ties into the next question is, what is the difference between starting the game for PSO2 New Genesis and starting the game for just PSO2? So these are two completely different versions of this game. So PSO2 is a game from like 10 years ago that is a completely different combat style, different characters, different story, just the whole lot. And then New Genesis is the newer game set 1,000 years in the future of this original game. But the reason these two are kind of combined together is that you can actually use the same characters and the cosmetics. They can just go back and forth between the two. But the reason why I say it's tied to the last question is that multiple characters are actually good for this older version of the game because not as many of these things are account bound. So you can do all the dailies and like the weeklies on each of these individual characters and get a lot for it. Of course, though, you don't have to play this version of the game and can strictly play New Genesis, but there's a whole bunch of different things in this older version of the game that is worth checking out. And then for the last thing on this title screen is actually changing your account ID. By default, it is just a PN with a whole bunch of numbers, but if you want to change it to something that's actually recognizable, you just go to the support menu here under the character selection, and you go to change player ID. So you click on this, and then if it's your first time, you get a free change, but if you try to change it anytime afterwards, it costs a whopping 3,000 AC, which is usually around $30. So whatever you choose, make sure that's what you want. Now finally getting into the game with our character here, we go into the combat and gear category. So for the first question is, how does the combat work for this game? So it's actually pretty simple if you've played other MMOs or action RPGs. You just have abilities on your bar down below here, and then you just proceed to use them. So like you have a normal attack like this is my left click, and then you have abilities called photon ARKS, which use your photon power gauge or like your mana. So like this, or you can kind of do like a closing gap or that. It's all dependent on the weapons that you are using. So essentially you want to combine these weapons skills and your class skills together to the best of your ability. You'll learn these throughout the game as you just use them against the different enemies. But to actually increase the power of what you have is to equip different weapons and armor. So how do you do this along with equipping abilities? Well, you just open up your menu and then go to gear/subpalette. And then the first few tabs here you can see already. So to equip a weapon, you just go over to that and click one of these empty tabs, and you can choose whatever you want. So here I can just select a Kodak Katana, which is in my inventory, and then it'll put out the abilities on the palette. So to actually change the things on the palette, you can just do the same thing, just select it, and you can choose whatever it is for that weapon. So this is all the katana stuff, but you can also put class abilities here as well. For equipping armor, you just go to the next tab, and you have 3 slots. So all of the armor in the game currently is just generic, so it doesn't matter what slots you put them into. But you just click on them, and you can put any armor that is in your inventory. And then there's also a thing called a sub-palette, which is basically that extra bar at the bottom of your screen where you can put additional skills and consumables and even other weapon abilities. So then leading into the next question is, why can I equip certain weapons or armor? So this could be a couple different things. So if you go into your inventory and check your said weapon, usually it has this red like cross out of it saying that you cannot equip it. So that could be because of the level is too high and you're not there yet. But another reason why, and the more common reason, is that you are not the class that can equip it. So for this sword here, this requires you to be a hunter, either for your main class or your subclass. And then for this spear here, that's the same. For a rifle, that's like ranger and gunner, and so on and so forth. Moving on to the next thing is, where can you upgrade your weapons to look something like this, where you get this plus 50, all of these augments on this, etc. So you can actually head to any city, the first one being Central City, and you can go to the Item Lab Enhancement Technician. So the first one you find is right here, and they can do everything for you for your weapon, such as item enhancement, adding augments, and all of this. But I talk about the majority of these things here in my Battle Power Guide video, so if you want to check that out, I'll put that in the upper right. Moving on to the next question is, what is Potency? So Potency is basically the stat that increases your damage or increases how potent your attacks are. So to give an example of that is to look at one of the weapons here. So this relic, if we look at its potential, it gives 27% potency. And then for like an augment here, like this Mastery 4, it gives 2.5% potency. The nice thing about this is that they don't only just add together, they actually multiply. So the more that you have, the more it compounds and the more damage you do. But there's actually different kinds of potency as well. So this potency here is just generic, so increases all of your damage that you would do. But then there's a thing called potency floor. So this increases the minimum damage you do, or the floor of your damage, while potency here increases the minimum and the maximum of your damage. Besides that though, there is 3 different types of potency. So there's melee, ranged, and technique weapon potency. So on my melee weapon here, I put on melee weapon potency. But for say like a rifle, you would want something like the ranged weapon potency. And then for something like a harmonizer, you would want that technique weapon potency. Out of these 3 specific types, what potency should you use for each weapon? So you can actually tell this very easily by looking at the color of the weapon's icon. So this harmonizer here, it is yellow. So yellow equals technique. So if you go to a melee weapon, they are red. So melee weapons equal red or melee weapon potency. And then for like ranged weapons, they are blue. So the ranged equals blue. That's enough on the gear though. Let's actually move on to talking about the open world. So going to the world map here, you can see that there is different zones. So what is the difference between these different places or the regions? There's actually another difference, is that they are separated between gathering zones and combat zones. So the way you can tell that is if you look at the info for the sector and look at this icon up here. So for the mining pick, that is a gathering zone. And then if you go to a combat area, it has a monster or red symbol to symbolize that. For combat zones, they are 8-player areas where you just slaughter enemies. And then for the gathering zones, you mine minerals, gather food items, but can also kill enemies there as well. And they are actually 32-player areas. But you don't want to just be in gathering zones though, because killing the enemies is a lot faster in these combat zones, and you can get a lot of XP and a lot of augments to upgrade your gear. Then on to the next question is, why are some of these areas grayed out for me? Well, this is because you need to continue farther into the main story. So this includes stuff in combat areas or just whole regions. But for this up here, this volcano spot, this is just grayed out because it is not in the game yet, and we have to wait until December of this year. And the next question is, why can't I access an activity even though I'm high enough level? So say you want to go to this purple portal here, and you notice that like the level is 44 and you reach that level. Well, it's probably because you don't actually have the battle power required. So this is like the gear score of the game that takes all of your stats, all of your weapons, etc., and combines it into one number. So if you don't have this, then you're not allowed in, even though your level may be this or higher. And then for the last question in this category is, what is the best way to level up? That's actually a pretty simple answer, and that is to do yellow portals. So you can find one in each of the regions. So one here, one over here in Rotem, and then one way up here in Kavaris. So they each have their own levels and ranks, but to get into them, they each cost the same thing, which is 5 common yellow triggers. You want to do the one that's closest to your level, and then you can just spam those to level up all the way to max if you wanted to. Now moving on to the social category with the first question, how do I add people to my friends list? So that's actually pretty simple. You can just go up to somebody and either click on them and do send friend request, or you can go and open up your menu down into communications and go to nearby characters. And then you just select the person that you want to add as a friend and do the same thing. And then for the second question is, how do I find my friend? We're in the same area, but I can't see them. Well, this is probably because they are in a different block than you or a different channel. So if you open up your menu, you can see this block in the upper left. So I'm in Alio for Beginners 2. So you can actually change your block by going to any teleporter or Ryuker device and going to block transfer. So then you just select any one that your friend is at, and then you can meet them there. But then if you still can't find them, they might actually be in a different room than you. So this actually applies to the exploration zones and combat zones, to where they actually have different instances within that block itself. So you can actually search that up here, and if you have them added, you can do rooms with friends only and select the one that you want to go to. But there's a way faster way if you actually have them on your friends list, and that is to just click on their name and then do transfer to this location. It'll take you directly to where they are. And then for the next question though is, how many players can be in the same instance as each other? Well, this varies wildly between the different activities. So in the cities, you can generally find hundreds of people, just as many as the block itself can hold. But for these exploration zones, it's 32, combat areas is 8, urgent quests, which is a special quest, is also 8, and then for these portals, that is only 4 players. But then for another question is, do all these activities have matchmaking? So most of these actually do. So the urgent quests, the portals, etc. do, but for things that don't are things like Geometric Labyrinth and certain cocoons, and for the main story that has to be solo. Next though is this game crossplay. So you can actually play between the Xbox players, PlayStation players, and also all the different PC versions all on the same servers. So you can play with any of your friends on any of those platforms, and also can cross save between those platforms as well. So then for the next question is, are there alliances or clans in this game? So there are alliances in this game, and they can hold up to 100 players. But then are there any benefits to being in an alliance? Well, there actually is. So if you go to this alliance activity support guy named Tim, which you can find in any city, he can give you quests which award you with alliance badges. So with these alliance badges, you can talk to him again in exchange for certain items. So like quest triggers, those common yellows that I was talking about earlier, or the purple triggers, and some other accessories and whatnot. But another thing is there's a competition every week between alliances to do as many of these alliance tasks as you can. So in the personal menu and then ARKS records, alliance task records, you can see this competition here and the different rewards. And then is there a player market? Well, there actually is, and it's called the personal shop. So you just find the personal shop staff in any of the cities, and you talk to them, and you can freely start buying things. But then for the next question is, how do I sell things on the market? So it's actually different than just buying things. You need to use a pass of some sort. So to get these passes, there's several ways. So in the mission pass, under the tasks, you can get it at tier 24. And to get there, you need to either spend star gems or you do dailies and weeklies to get up to that point. And these restart every month, so you can get this 3-day pass every month for free. But if you just want to have it open all the time, then you can go to the shop, AC, SG, and then AC. You can either get premium, or if you want just the shop access, then you go down to the bottom here and then get personal shop use for 30 days. Then for the final question in the social category is, how do I trade with another player? So you can't actually do that directly, and you need to use the player market to buy and sell from each other. So moving on into the fashion category is, how do I get cosmetics? So this is a pretty broad question. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can do though. So you can go into the player market as shown before. There's sometimes events that happen that give you items. There's quests that give you some cosmetics as well. But the main way is to go into the shop tab here and go to play scratch tickets. So with this, there's different kinds of tickets. So there's AC, so this costs real money to essentially gamble pull through these different prize lists. Then there's SG, which is a premium kind of currency, so you can earn a ton of it in game by doing certain activities, but you can also pay for it with real money. But then there's also a free scratch every day that gives you one item from this SG scratch as long as you log in and pull from it. And then there's these special scratches that take different activities to get these tickets. The most common one, though, is this special scratch at the bottom here, where you can do a couple weeklies for these and other things as well. Then for the next question is, what level do I need to be to buy these cosmetics? Well, actually, it's not exactly tied to level, and it's as long as you get out of the prologue and do a couple main missions, then you'll start unlocking different things, which includes this shop tab as well. And then for the next one is, where is my item? I checked everywhere for it. Well, when you actually buy these items, they go directly into your inventory and look like these tickets here. Sometimes when your inventory is full, it'll be put into a storage, so either your default storage or your character storage. But basically all you gotta do is hover over to the ticket and then just use it. So when you use it once, it binds it to your character only. So if you go to a different character, then you won't have this item. But if you use it a second time with another ticket, then it'll bound it to your whole account. So every single character that you have, even like up to 30, will be able to use it. But now, how do I actually equip these cosmetics? Well, there's two ways that you can do that. First is in this gear/sub palette menu, you can go to customize looks and search through here for the different items that you want to equip. But a better way of going about it is to go to the Salon NPC or the Salon staff. So this, when you talk to them, and you can enter the Salon, and this will take you to a special little spot that shows just kind of like the character creation menu. So depending on the cosmetic that you use, you just need to go to a certain spot. So if it's an accessory, then you just go to the accessory section and you go to any of these change spots and you start equipping them. So I can put on this hat or whatever else. But then with these cosmetics, there's a couple important things to know, such as what is layering where. So unlike other games where you just get a set whole skin, you can actually break it up into different parts. So you have your underwear, your base wear, which is like your regular clothing, and then like outerwear, which is usually like jackets that go over top. Sometimes though, there is set wear or full wear, which doesn't allow you to wear outerwear on top of it. This ties into the next question on why can I not equip certain outfits? So it could be because of that set wear, full wear, but also you can't put on conflicting pieces. So what I mean by that is if you're wearing a male base wear, you can't put on like a female outerwear. But then in some cases, you have a male outerwear, but the male base wear and it still won't get put on. That's because it could be a PSO2 original version outfit trying to be put on an NGS one, or vice versa. So you can't do that. It needs to be PSO2 to PSO2 or NGS to NGS. It doesn't work with the different types. And then also that applies to the innerwear. Then for the next question is, how do I change the color of my outfits? Well, you need a thing called a color change pass to actually get it to set. So you can change the colors here, but when you actually try to leave or save the changes, it'll say you need a color change pass to be able to change it. This applies to the base wear, outerwear, and innerwear, and even the cast parts. Then for the next thing is, how do I change my other features of my character? So there's a thing where you need star gems or a Salon Pass, so another pass. So this can apply to your face shape, adjusting that, your hair color, but not your hairstyle at least. So you can just do that, and then say your nose shape. So a lot of the features of your character itself. But to actually get these different passes, it usually involves that AC or the real money. But you can actually get them from login bonuses, the special scratch, and some other random things. Once you're all said and done with a look, how do you actually save it? So if you go to the fashion tab here and go to looks, you can save up to 10 outfits. You can technically save up to 30, but you would need premium for those extra slots. But then for the final question in this fashion category is, how do I undo these changes or like undo the whole thing? Well, you can actually go to Review Changes here at the bottom, and then unselect any of the things that you don't want to apply. It actually tells you all the things that would cost something as well, just in case you wanted to just check something out, but don't actually have what is necessary. And then all you gotta do is hit Apply at the bottom, and then you're good to go. Now onto the final category here, the Other or Miscellaneous one. So this is just a whole bunch of extra questions that kind of just got thrown into the final mix, but I still wanted to include. So for this first one is, how do you check your stats? So that's actually pretty easy. You just open up the menu and go to Personal and then Character Info. So this will show you all the stat information in the first tab, like your potencies, your resistances, etc. But also you can check out your class information with the different levels and experience, and also all the photon arts in the game, all the techniques in the game, and other class skills. Then there's, how do I change my controls? Well, once again, you just go to the menu and click on System. So then you can either go to Options or Control Settings. So in the options, it's just a whole bunch of different things such as graphics, gameplay, and your interface. But then with the control settings, that's actually how you change your different inputs and also what kind of thing that you're using, like controller, mouse, keyboard, etc. And then for the next one is, how do I put icons onto the world map? So things like this or these pins here. So you just got to do the place waypoint, which tells you how to do that at the bottom here. So for me, it's R. And then you can either put the pin or an icon. And then you can change what it looks like by pressing this here and selecting any of these options. And then you can just put a little note inside and then just place it. Next, for another neat interface feature is, how do I have my inventory to look like this? All these icons in a grid formation. You can actually change the display mode in the upper right here and just click that. So that'll bring you back and forth between the two just by clicking that again and again. And then for the next thing, which is pretty similar, is how do I hide the chat? So once again, you just need to do a change display mode in the same box, and then it will hide it. If you want to bring it back, you just need to press a key to where you would enter something into chat, and you just press this change display mode again to bring it back. There's also another way to kind of hide chat, and that is going to the system menu and going to streamer mode and enabling that, and that'll kind of turn off all of the chat so you don't really need to see any of it. And then for a thing back to inventory is, how do I get more inventory slots? Well, you got to go to the shop and then the AC shop, and then you have to buy things with the premium currency. So either these packs that have these N inventory plus 10s, or you scroll to the bottom and then you can buy them directly for 350 AC. Just be aware that these increases only apply to the one character up to 200. It can also be done to their character storages for 50 at a time up to 1,000. And then, is there PvP or player versus player stuff in this game? For New Genesis, that is a no as of now. But there is a PvP mode in the base game or the regular PSO2, but nobody really plays that, so you're not going to really find any matches to play unless if you set up your own lobbies. And then for the next one, is there player housing? For New Genesis, there is currently not, but they did announce that in early 2023 or next year, we'll be getting that player housing along with Alliance housing. So that'll be pretty nice. And then, are there any mounts in this game? Kind of. There isn't a mount that you can have all the time, like a horse or whatever, but there is like motion changes where you can change your dash to look like you're on a mount, but it does not increase your move speed. But there are things in Kavaris called floating boards, which go to these certain pads, and you can ride a board to actually go faster and do boosts and tricks. And then finally, for the last question, the 50th one, and probably the most popular one that was asked to me, is, would I recommend this game? I absolutely would. It's definitely worth a try since it's free to play. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can do as a new player, going through all the different regions, doing all the different modes, and trying to get all of these cosmetics. Because in my opinion, this game really shines when it comes to its cosmetics and its fashion. That is one of the highlights or features of this game. It's kind of lackluster to me in terms of its story and sometimes with certain modes. But I would not go into this thinking that it's some huge MMO and is more like a co-op action game that you can play with your friends in your off time. That was a long one though. Thank you guys for sticking around so long throughout this video. And if you have any more questions, consider checking out the rest of my channel for more guides or commenting down below for more questions. So I might do another video like this in the future. I'll see you guys in the next one though. Peace.